Hi, I'm Charlotte and this is Tired Mama Tries to Read. So I'm back after a week where I just have not been able to film. And the reason why that was annoying was because I was halfway through filming a review video that I filmed straight after my last book haul video. But unfortunately my small person came in crying because I think he'd fallen over. I think that's what happened. So I was like 6 minutes in and I could just hear this wailing coming through the house. And it was a bit of a shame because I was doing one of those videos where I actually felt like I was making a bit of sense. I don't know if that's going to be the same today, as this is already take 4 because I've stumbled over my words a lot in the other ones. So we'll just crack straight on before I make another mess of it. This is Sarah Baum's A Line Made by Walking, and I've just finished this. I read it in 2 days. It was amazing. It's about a girl called Frankie she's suffering from a real bout of depression. It's set in Ireland. She returns home to her parents' house, and then she gets the idea while she's there that she would like to go and live in her grandmother's bungalow. Her grandmother died a couple of years before, so the bungalow's in a real state of disrepair. But she feels that being out in nature, because it's sort of in quite a rural area, will do her some good. And while she's there, she takes very few belongings, but she takes her camera with her. She's an artist, not a photographer by all accounts, but she is an artist, and she feels that she can capture something. It's not a spoiler to say that what she decides to capture are images of dead animals, which sounds really weird, and every chapter is headed by the animal that she's taking a picture of in that period. It's a way of her to focus. If you don't like descriptive books, probably this isn't for you. It's not sort of flowery descriptive. It is basic, but it's looking at everything, you know, the cracks in the walls, the mould, analysing basically everything that she feels, everything she's done. Time kind of doesn't really mean anything. I mean, although I've never had depression like that, well, certainly not for that period of time, and certainly not, I don't think I've had it to that extent, let's be honest. I think everyone could relate to a certain extent to the things she's talking about. So actually she goes back to when she was a child, and there were so many things that she was talking about, little rituals that she had to do, and if she didn't do them, then something awful would happen to her family, and just things like that really rang true with me. But even as it stands, even if it's not something you've been through personally, I just think it's a really beautiful book. And I think it's a book for our times, because, you know, we are so consumed with being attached to the world. You know, even me, who really struggles to do anything outside of my comfort zone at the minute, I can always be connected through social media. I'm making this video right now, which is actually just me sat in my living room, so I'm totally able to do it. But I'm connecting in a way that somebody who feels the way I do probably wouldn't be able to. So removing yourself from that world, I think, is really interesting, and that's what she sets out to do. So there's that one. Before that, I read Hilton and his book White Girls. It was, I had a book hangover afterwards because it covered so many topics, and his writing style it's brilliant, but it's not an easy read by any stretch of the imagination. So especially one of the last chapters, You and Whose Army, which is about Richard Pryor and about an imaginary sister that he never had, who is she's the sound effects person for porn movies, and she sort of talks about her life and Richard Pryor's life, and I mean, it's just so surreal, and it's really, well, don't let the book fall into the wrong hands, because the language is pretty out there. So, and there's a lot of things in the book which are not easy to access, but I actually think that makes complete sense. You know, I'm as far removed from Hilton Als's world as there could possibly be. My dogs are barking again. Sorry about that. So, you know, Hilton Als is he's a black man from America. He's gay. There's just, you know, there's nothing about that is my life. So it should be inaccessible to me in some ways, but it was also a very, very important read for me. It was an eye-opener. I loved and was deeply saddened by the chapters on AIDS. He's not the first person to write about AIDS, but he writes about it in a way that was really quite something. I also found the first chapter, which is kind of about this romance that he does and yet doesn't have with another man for over a decade, from what I can tell. He calls him SL, which means Sir or Lady, and he just does that to protect his identity, I believe. So the chapter on what love really is, it's quite amazing, really, because there's no physical connection between them. They're a couple in spirit, but from what I could tell, as it's quite a difficult text to read, SL is there as a spiritual partner, but he has other relationships. And then they do actually, yeah, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a really good read. I would definitely say it's not an easy read. And a couple of chapters I didn't particularly like, but some of them I loved, and I think it was well worth it. So I'm glad I bought that, because I don't even know. I think it was just came up on my recommends on my internet. Okay, third one, A Manual for Cleaning Women. Completely amazing. Oh dear. Someone has decided to wait outside our house. And that basically means that our dogs will bark until they go. Now they've gone. It might take them 5 minutes to notice that they've gone. So this is A Manual for Cleaning Women, and this is by Lucia Berlin. This was incredible. I felt like I was Lucia Berlin. She totally absorbed me. Her writing style was amazing. It was personable. You know, she talks to you. She says, you know, I'm not exaggerating, and this is what really happened. And there's even a bit where she says, you know, if I was writing a character, I'd write the character like this. And of course, you know, it's this kind of metafiction stuff going on. It's brilliant. If you don't like short stories, that doesn't matter. They're all so interconnected, apart from maybe a couple in the middle, which are very well placed by the editors. And they're also interconnected because they are so autobiographical that you feel like you're just in a slightly whirly version of a biography. So, you know, you're reading about her when her children are young, then they've grown up in the next story, but then you go back and she has one, or she's pre-child. And there's nothing confusing about that, because they are separate stories. You just retain that knowledge, obviously, of what you learnt in the story previously, and it just assists you in how you interpret the next story. Apart from anything else, her descriptions of what it's like to be an alcoholic are really profound and eye-opening, I think. As, you know, I hadn't experienced alcoholism firsthand, or even in my immediate family. So I don't understand. Obviously, I understand what it might be like, but not to that level. And she really drives home, you know, the futility of it, how her sons really love her and want her to change, but she just can't seem to do it, even for them. And then towards the end of the book, you're in the stories that she wrote towards the end of her life. And there's lots of reflections upon life and death. Her sister has cancer in it, so those kind of lead you up to that. They might bark again. There's someone else walking past. This is my life. People refusing not to walk past my house. So anyway, that's brilliant. And then this one, this is Leonor Carrington by Joanna Moorhead. And it's amazing. I can't say enough about it. I've written quite a long review on my Instagram because I loved it so much. She was an artist. Well, she wasn't an artist originally. She was just a rich girl, basically, who abandoned her family. She was obviously into art, and she'd had art classes that her parents had kind of grudgingly paid for, thinking it might give her something to occupy herself with. What it actually made her do is it made her run away to Paris to hang out with the Surrealists. I think she was like 18 when that happened. I read this about 6 weeks ago now, so I'm going to be a bit hazy on the time frame. So she ran off to Paris. She gets caught in Europe as the World War II starts to take shape. She's in a relationship with a German artist called Max Ernst at the time, so he's got to try and escape. It's really traumatic. The middle sections are really traumatic because of the war, because of her relationship with Max Ernst, and the issues she feels about potentially leaving him in Germany, because she knows she has to escape as well. Her own mental health, her family's actions are just out of this world, appalling. And then later she goes to America. She does manage to get away, as does Max, and that's not a spoiler because you can look any of this stuff up on Wikipedia. They are, you know, Max is quite a famous artist. He went on to marry Peggy Guggenheim. So they go off to America, and then she goes to Mexico. And it's just another sort of seemingly random decision in a series of random decisions that go to make up her life. And they're quite frightening decisions. You know, they're always putting her into the unknown. She goes to Mexico and she has 2 children. She raises them, you know, in a country where she has no family to help her. She makes excellent connections, though, with her friends. And she stays in Mexico for most of her life, with a brief period back in America. And then she ends up spending the last days of her life in Mexico. And she's one of Mexico's most treasured artists. And it's only here, really, that we don't know who she is, although that's starting to change. So I just loved it. I love the fact that what I got from it, really, was that she did all these things that were really quite terrifying. But she did them anyway. And she said, you know, I was terrified, but I just did it. I felt like that was a real, I don't know, it really rang true. Not rang true with me, because I definitely am not like that, but it made me feel that's something to aspire to, that it's okay to be afraid, and if you still want to do something, just to try. So yeah, those are my 4. I'm going to stop now because I think this video is super long, and I've got a quick book haul video to do, and a little bit of a book haul with a difference. So I'll see you soon. Bye.